Oh, okay. We're starting. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a piece I'm trying to write, but it's a weird piece because it's titled How to Get Lost. The main thesis or idea is that being lost or being caught up in ambiguity is more of a feature than a bug. But the problem is not with actually getting lost in the first place, it's actually the internal stuff, the problems with confusion and anxiety and stress. And these things actually make being lost even more complicated. And I was reading a book called The Field Guide to Getting Lost, which I haven't finished it, but one of the first ideas is that uh, we are bad at getting lost, or so to speak. So it's about search and rescue teams and how they have to rescue wanderers who've maybe strayed a bit too far. And the problem is the people who get lost and potentially die because they aren't able to find their way back or find their way to get found really. The problem is they don't have the right skills or they're not following the right protocols on getting lost. And one of the first things is knowing where you are. Because if you don't know where you are and you don't know what direction to go, you can go in a certain direction thinking you're going in the right way, but realize you're actually going further and further away from where you would like to go. And at some point, this can lead to painful, deadly problems. So, why am I writing this? During COVID, I, I was basically caught stuck in my campus during my master's, which was actually quite lucky. So this was a very nice campus, and they had a lake and like a really nice forest stuff. So I could stay on, and it was okay. It wasn't too bad. I wandered around a bit, um, just listening to ducks argue with each other. The only thing was at some point I got bored while being stuck on campus. Half my friends had left to go home during the lockdown. So to scratch my wanderlust, because I couldn't go anywhere, even though I'd been planning to travel, I ended up finding different routes that people normally don't take to go to the lake. So I would find like 5 to 6 different new routes to visit, which was fun and kind of exciting in some ways. I even found like an extra campus deep within the forest, which was creepy. But for some reason, there's an extra campus in my school's overall uh, campus, let's say, which no one knew about, and I don't think anyone does know about it. Um, but yeah, I mean, there was a lot of confidence and curiosity that guided my steps, and I never felt anxious or awkward about doing that. I just thought like, oh, we're exploring. But but when I left my master's and I went for my first job, which was in consulting, I somehow lost this ability to embrace being lost. In fact, um, in the first month of my job, I was a cocktail of fear and confusion. I was full of anxiety. And even though my manager would say like, "Oh, it's fine, it's okay, you'll manage this," my brain was exploding. My nervous system was on fire, and I didn't know why. So I had asked another senior colleague. He'd been in this consulting gig for almost 5 years. So I thought maybe he knows a thing or two, right? And when I asked him, like, how do you manage the ambiguity and chaos of a consulting project because you don't know anything and your clients know everything? Um, he was like, it's part of the process. Being lost, being caught up in the anxiety and ambiguity, it happens with every project, and it's just about treating it as part of the whole thing. And I was like, I don't want that. I don't want to accept this feeling. because there's a pressure, right? There's a pressure to perform on the job. And when you're caught up in this ambiguity, you think, well, how do I get out of it, really? And in a goal setting culture, that makes sense because it's tempting to solve ambiguity because you can just pick a direction and go with it, right? But when you're caught in a fog, there are multiple problems that can happen. You don't know where you are, you don't know where you want to go, and there's just this overall confusion, which makes it really fun um, to end up like borrowing, let's say, from other people that you see and try to think, okay, so this is my role models. For instance, when we don't know what career paths to take, we just look on LinkedIn or we look at our immediate circle and we're like, oh, so these people, they seem to have some kind of shiny veneer about them. So I'm going to follow along with what they're doing because why not? When things are laid out like a map, it creates clarity. Now, what if your map is wrong? We don't ask that. We just think, oh, with clarity, we get direction, and that can generate velocity. And velocity eventually creates momentum. And with momentum, you can snowball into progress. But what if all that progress is going in the wrong direction? That's one of the problems with being lost is we might think that we have an idea, but it's actually going in the wrong direction. Just like the people who got lost wandering in the woods. And the question then is, how do you see through this fog of ambiguity? How do you embrace feeling lost the same way I was trying to embrace it in the forest on campus? And I don't actually know. I think a bit of it is that getting so caught up in trying to not be anxious and not feeling this ambiguity and kind of like uncomfortable feeling. This is part of the problem. This actually does not help. Instead, it's good to not struggle with it and instead embrace it in some way. And how do you embrace it? I I think it's a matter of sitting down with the feeling and 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 sitting with the silence of it really. And that can be troubling, right? Like if you're caught in a fog, imagine the tendrils are wrapped around your ankles. It's very unnerving, and you don't want to embrace that directionless, anxious feeling, especially when there are expectations. I think that's part of the problem also. We let the expectations kind of like gobble us up as people, and it just gets in our way in many ways. It clouds our judgment literally, and we end up creating to-do lists that lead to nowhere. So I don't know. That's kind of as far as I've gone with this piece. I'm still figuring it out, but here's the recording.